All right, Martha, we're going to start here in 1 minute. So it looks like it's just going to be you and I to begin. That's fine. I'm experimenting. I'm also live streaming on YouTube right now. Oh, okay. That was me on YouTube. So I just muted that. There's like a little delay. So that's.
Is it just you and me?
Yeah, it's just us. But then I'm streaming on YouTube. So if anyone wants to go on, they'll see us or whatever. So.
A lot of people are having problems today. You know that.
I know. So I was going to start anyhow by just talking about like, I feel like we all as Texans just need like a collective sigh, you know, like, I last month, and this is going to be part of my presentation, I lost my dad. I had to go to California.
I'm so sorry.
It's all right. It's making me a better lawyer. You know, I do probate and stuff. So he was ready. And it's crazy. There was like this 85-mile-per-hour windstorm, and then there was a forest fire. And so, yeah, I snapped a tendon in my hand. And so I was like, okay, you know, when I get home, everything will be cool. I've got natural disaster check, 2021, whatever. And then last week happened, and I have a hernia also. So I was supposed to go see that doctor and get that repaired last week so that I can go get this repaired, but no. Alas, I'm glad to do this presentation because it forced me to put on makeup and,
I can't make my pictures show up. I've tried, but I'm here.
Okay, well, I appreciate you. So I'm going to get started and we'll go from there. Okay, so also, like, if you have any questions or anything, since it's really just you and me, just go ahead and shout them out. We can, you'll get this one-on-one, Martha. So, like, when I did these in real life, I just had people shout things out. So don't be afraid of that, okay?
Okay.
In law school, they use the Socratic method where you have to like stand and answer questions. They like interrupt you and they try to scare you and stuff. So I'm really good at that kind of thing. Okay. All right. So Cadillac Law is the name of my firm. These are our most recent pictures. And every time I see this, I can't believe how unbelievably big our kids are already. So I started the firm in 2013 doing property tax protests. I actually started doing property tax protests when I was in law school. I did it on my own property. And then I did them out here. And then like someone told someone I did them. And then all of a sudden I had clients. It was wild. But I do offer those, just FYI, that's coming up in April, May. So I've been in Oak Cliff and Dallas full-time since 2016. The firm has, and our emphasis has been on real estate matters. We do probate, we work with investors and contractors, and we do estate and aging planning. I actually, like right before this, my plumber client called and he's, thank God, going to help fix my house. So we are a woman-owned and operated firm. I have employed men, but they've always ended up wagging their finger in my face. And so I just with the girls, you know, we have a bunch of girl power going on and I love that. So, okay. Now myself, my name is Lauren Cadillac. I went to Arizona State University, graduated in 2004. I'm starting to feel like old. I got an MBA in 2008, and that took so long because I had a really bad car accident and I had to learn how to walk again in between. I then went to St. Mary's in 2008 with my son in tow as a single mom and got my JD. I moved to Dallas with AT&T. They hired me to negotiate contracts, and I did that for 5 years. Then I stopped being miserable and started running my own business in 2016. And I learned like really, really incredibly quickly that there was like a huge need in Oak Cliff and just like south of the Trinity, truly, there was no one doing real estate or anything real estate related at all. And so I've really been able to be a part of like create something really, truly. And I love that. In 2019, September 2019, the city of Dallas gave me the contract to do the title program, which is what we were gonna do today. They asked me to reschedule. And you know what? My daughter didn't have to go to school all week last week, and she doesn't have school Monday or Tuesday. So lucky. Anyhow, we're rescheduling that for March 27th. Single mother of two. I am not actually single anymore, but I am a mother of two. Okay. So here's where we do the vocabulary. In Texas, actually everywhere, these words apply everywhere, not just Texas. Intestate is when you die without a will. Testate is when you die with a will. Inside the will, you're the testator. Testator. And the estate is the assets and debt left by a decedent. The decedent is the person who has passed away. Probate is the judicial act of settling an estate. And you'll note the word judicial is in there, so that means a judge is involved. And power of attorney is the ability to make either financial or medical decisions for someone else. That power dies with that person. And a trust is a mechanism in which a decedent can divide their assets with conditions after death. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing real quick, see if anyone else. Nope, no one else has joined us. Wow, Martha, that's just you and I. It's awesome, though. I'm glad we're doing
I actually have experience. I was a guardian of the person, and so I have a lot of this information. But this is a thing. I'm here because, and it worked out this way because I'm concerned about. I'm it. When I was born, I killed off two sides of the family. I wasn't male. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then it's, where do I give my things to people? You know, like friends. How do I give this away in the best way that I can?
Okay, so we'll get into the different mechanisms of giving stuff away. Obviously, it's all going to be up to you, but we'll get to like the different ways of doing it. So
appreciate that. Just to let you know something about me.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing. Okay, so let's see. Wait, where was I? Oh, here we go. Okay. I'm not that good with technology. I feel like it makes me look older than I really am because I'm always like, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. Okay. So the Texas population the median age is 34. There are over 3 million people who are over 60, and over 5 million are between 5 and 17. And I say luckily because hopefully these little people will take care of us someday. Hopefully. Considerations as we age. In my mind, there's about it's broken up in two things. And Martha, you said you were guardian of the person, right?
Yes, I was. Okay. Yeah, I had to take my father to, it was too late by the time I figured out his Alzheimer's, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I couldn't find the will. I did eventually find the will and power of attorney, but after the fact.
Well, too late. So the guardian of the person is the ability to care for yourself, the ability to make your own medical decisions. When you can't do that, you need a guardian of the person or a medical POA. And then the other is guardian of the estate, which would be a durable power of attorney. That's the person who's going to pay your bills and make your financial decisions. Now, in Texas, when you are married, either by contract certificate or by common law, your spouse is automatically these things for you. But it sounds, Martha, like you are single. And yes. I was until recently. And so these are like really important things to think about. And what I would think about when thinking about who to choose for these things, I tell people you want someone that you trust. It doesn't have to be the same two people, right? So like I have two kids. If my son becomes a doctor and my daughter is CPA, obviously my son's going to be my medical and my daughter is going to be the durable, right? Right now I have two sisters. One is really good with money and one is really nice. So the nice one is my medical because there's not going to be any bed sores at the nursing home. And then the good with money is my financial stuff because I know she won't buy my son $150 Jordans or whatever it is that he wants. So They don't necessarily have to be the same person. They have to be people you trust. They have to be people you know will execute your wishes. And I suggest you choose people who are a little younger than you. Just statistically speaking, that's the way to do it. Right now, I have my sisters as POAs. Like I said, one's good with money, one's good with me. Nice. Okay, so what happens when we don't prepare? Well, you know firsthand, Martha, because you had to go through this with your dad. But if anyone ever comes back and watches this on YouTube or anywhere else, I want them to know that Medicaid has a look back period of 5 years. So if you're someone who needs to do Medicaid planning, that's not Medicare that you just get because you paid into it. This is the extra help. Then this is something to consider. If you don't have power of attorney, those kind of things, if you don't have a trust, if those type of things, you can end up in court. Court takes forever and it costs a ton of money. You're like, why is it so expensive? I'm like, I went to 25 years of school. Okay, there you go. There's your whole answer. So did that judge. So did the other lawyer. So don't. It's unavoidable if you're not prepared, but it is avoidable if you are prepared. You can also run into title issues with your property where heirs or whoever would not be able to sell it. And this is the most important thing that I'm going to teach today at all. If anyone watches this ever and they only learn one thing, this is what I want them to learn, okay? Do not put your will or documents into, or your important documents in a safe deposit box. Because when you are incapacitated, someone will have to go to a judge and a judge will have to sign an order, and then they have to take the order in a locksmith over to your safe deposit box, and then they have to cut it open and find your documents. Do you know how much money that costs? Too much. You can use a fireproof safe in your house. I personally am a business owner, so I have mine inside my business, and the building, is relatively safe. So also
I have that.
See, okay, good. With the power of attorneys, those you'll want to keep an original, but you definitely want to give a copy to the person who has the power, right? So if you choose your best friend Sue, you'll keep the original. You can stuff that in your office or whatever, and then give Sue a copy in case there's ever any kind of issue and she needs to use it. Hopefully not, but All right. What can we do to prepare? So here we go. First, power of attorney, which we just spoke about. We do the medical, we can do the durable. I told you, Martha, that I lost my dad. I got there on like January, 17th, 18th, somewhere right in there. He passed on the 20th. And I am not kidding you. He did not have a medical power of attorney signed. This is what my daughter does. My daughter is 8 and she does this thing. She goes, and so now I do it. Yes, your daughter is a flippin' lawyer. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. He didn't have it.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm a registered nurse. And so, there's things, I understand.
It's just frustrating. You get there and you're like, okay, he had a wife, so she was built in, so that's fine. But it's still frustrating. We can also do a document called a Declaration of Guardian, and I do these as part of my estate planning package. I do a full package. It doesn't create the guardianship for you. If you need a guardianship, that would be because somehow your power of attorney documents, I don't know, you got hurt in a fire and they burned with you or something. I don't know. So the court has to become involved. These basically act as your evidence. You're in a coma. These have your signature. They say, this is who I want, whatever. Now, the court, if you chose your felon cousin, the court's going to say no, like felons can't be in charge. Like they're not allowed. But if you chose your best friend who's a regular person, the judge is going to weigh that very heavily against the other options, right? So if your best friend came in and was like, look, judge, I'll do it, and here she wanted me to do it, then the judge is most likely going to go ahead and sign off on that. So there are ways to it for the declaration of guardian. It's a way to testify from a coma, or when you have Alzheimer's, right, or your dementia is too bad. And then, of course, you can do estate planning. And so personally, I have been working in the Dallas probate courts for a number of years, and that has taught me to not want to do probate in Dallas. So
I understand completely. I had 7 years of that with a court-appointed attorney. You don't even have to explain the Dallas probate a court with me.
Awesome sauce. So I won't spend much time on that, but I will say it has become a bit of a hobby of mine to try to avoid probate, right? So it's like, what can I do to avoid probate? The best thing I think to do to avoid probate, and Martha, I think in your situation, because you don't have like heirs per se, this would be your best, is a trust. Because the trust says, here's what I want, and here's how it needs to be done, and here's the deadlines. Then this POD, that stands for payable on death. So what you do is you create a trust, and then you go into your bank. So like I have a trust, but I've had this checking account for like 10 years, right? And like all my bills are paid out of it. And I'm really lazy. I do not want to go just do everything again with a new bank. It's been a decade. I don't know. So anyhow, so I start the trust. So I did get an account in the trust name. So I do have a trust account so that my trust can earn money and do those kind of things. However, on that account that I have that is like so old, I don't even want to deal with it, I just made a payable on death to the trust. And so the way you do a payable on death is you just go into the bank or whatever it is, wherever your account is, and you tell them you want to do a payable on death. It's literally that easy. And so then what happens is when you die, like in my case, when I die, my kids will just take the death certificate to the bank, and then, or not my kids, whoever, I don't know. They'll take the death certificate to the bank, and then the bank will cut a check to whoever the POD is, in my case, my trust. So that will eliminate the need for probate. If you do everything correctly, you can completely eliminate the need for probate. A will does not, no matter what, a will has to like go through a judge. So it's going to be like a monument of title or a probate. So wills are not useless, but they're nowhere near as awesome as trusts in Dallas County. If we're in Collin County, this is a totally different story. In Collin County, a will is just as good. Boom, it'll get done. Okay. Estate planning, avoiding issues after death. I couldn't read the title, my face was over it. Okay, payable at death, we just talked about. That's done at the bank. You go sign the form. It's really easy. A trust, I just told you, will avoid probate. Another thing about a trust is the only way you control from the grave. So Martha, this isn't necessarily for you, but this is if anyone else ever comes on and watches this video. And also, I just love this story and I think you'll like it. So when I was in my very early 20s, like 19, 20, 21-ish, I sold like handbags and jewelry and stuff inside a little booth in a hair salon, okay? And there was this guy who worked at the hair salon, and he was a hairdresser, and this is the early 2000s, right? And so he told me that his grandma was really wealthy and she left him a trust, but in order to access the money, he had to be legally married. So Martha, I'm sure you can guess why grandma made him, be legally married, right? So in 2012, when the Supreme Court said that everybody can be legally married, I thought about him and I laughed because there goes grandma's control, right? Anyhow, trusts are the only way you can do things like that. So I tell people, like, you can say, if you ever wear purple on a Tuesday, you get nothing. If you don't get legally married, you get nothing. Those kind of things. That is what rich people do. It is the only way to control from the grave. People always like, oh, well, I want to will her my house so long as da, 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 da. No, we're going to go ahead and put that in a trust. If we're going to start putting contingencies on things, let's do a trust. We can do it through a will. It's just obnoxious. So I'd rather do a trust. The will distribute the property after the death, and you have to do a form of probate. The government must be involved. Martha, the court is the government. I have all these clients like, Lauren, why is it taking so long? Because the court is the government. That's all I have to say about that. We can also do deeds. So I don't know, Martha, if you're a homeowner, but if you're a homeowner and let's say you don't
I own my house outright.
Okay,
I do.
perfect. So a lot of times I have folks who are like a homeowner and that's just literally their only asset, right? So they're on like Social Security, they have that fixed income, but they live in their home. And then a lot of times they have, the niece or nephew or the kid or whoever comes take care of them in their final years, living in the home with them. If you own your home outright, like you do, Martha, we can do transfer and death deed, which I don't use. They took the language out of the code and I didn't like them as much as ladybird deeds anyhow, or ladybird deed. And so basically what that says is like, I, Martha, own this house. It's mine. I can do whatever I want. I can sell it. I can do whatever, blah, blah, blah. But at the moment I die, it becomes so-and-so's, right? That's the effect of that deed. So you'll still own the house. You can still sell it. You do whatever you want, but that avoids probate. All the person who is receiving it has to do is come to my office with your death certificate. We do an affidavit of death. I charge less than $200 for those currently, and they own the house. Easy peasy.
That's a ladybird. That is what the ladybird deed is about.
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously. That's like obviously like the most layman terms I can put it into, right? And it doesn't get into the technicalities of the law, which I have read through multiple times. But basically that's what you're doing. And it's awesome. Ladybird deeds are the greatest.
Okay, because I read it and I couldn't figure it out, and I usually can.
Oh,
wow.
Well, yeah.
There you go. Just a sidebar, real quick question. They keep telling us on trying to sell us, deed protection. You know what I mean? Like somebody's going to come take your deed. I talked to the county. Can somebody just come take my, house? You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, they can. I have a whole video about that on the YouTube. So it's Cadillac law. You can go watch that. Texas is crazy. Like I can just go put a deed on your house. And then be like, yeah, it's mine. Now, am I actually going to be able to like take the house? No, probably not. There's going to be a lot of money spent on lawsuits and stuff. But yes, that is true. So the YouTube channel is Cadillac Law, CADILAC LAW, and the video is called Protecting Yourself from Deed Fraud, I think. Okay. And it is very real in Texas. And don't pay for anything to do that. It's not something you can pay for a service to protect yourself from.
There's not really a pay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a scam, but it can be done. That's not a lie.
Okay.
All right.
I figured. Thank you.
Okay. So when we talk about estate planning, we have to talk about the estate's code because that's where it all comes from. The state of Texas wrote their code for the Leave It to Beaver family. That's, 2-parent, mom and dad, always married, no kids from any other marriages, blah, blah, blah. That's not real life. Okay. But that is what it's written for. So that is the community property transfers to the spouse. And then when that spouse dies, it gets distributed to the children evenly. Easy. But in like real life, normal lives, people are married and then they have different kids from different multiple relationships. Who knows? And then, so that is the way it's divided is there's going to be a community property split. So the surviving spouse gets their own half. And then recently they updated the law. Thank God. The surviving spouse gets half of their spouse's share. So the surviving spouse is going to walk away with 75%. And then the children of the deceased spouse split the other 25%. And I've seen that and it is ugly. Yeah, I don't know about you, But Martha, you don't have kids. I have kids. I didn't have these guys so that they would have to like co-own 25% of property with some dude. Just saying.
I'm single I'm single.
Smart.
I consider myself an orphan now and single.
I am. When my dad was the only parent I have a relationship with. And I have a client who I wrote her and I said, I lost my dad. And she said, I'm so sorry. And she said, you're kind of an orphan now. And I understand. And it's weird. Like, I'm an adult, but I'm kind of an orphan too. I'm with you, Martha. Okay, so you fall into the final category, which like the state of Texas did contemplate, but they don't really care about. This is, they give your stuff to your parents or your siblings. And if those people are deceased, like if you didn't have siblings, then it goes to your parents' siblings. And if they're deceased, it goes to your cousins, basically. It gets messy. It gets stupid messy. So how do we avoid the mess? Estate planning. Okay, so avoiding probate. You'll see there are multiple slides about avoiding probate. It's like my favorite thing to do. Okay, estate settlement outside of probate. Now, this is for people who did not, well, I guess this is planning and not planning. So an affidavit of heirship can be done when someone's died and they didn't have a will or they didn't have whatever, but all they pretty much had was the house. There's not many assets and there's no debt. We can do an affidavit of heirship in which two witnesses are signing an affidavit saying, I'm aware this person was alive and they had these kids or didn't, and they had these spouses or didn't. That gets recorded onto the property and then is owned by the heirs listed in the document. 2 years ago, title companies would not insure on these for 5 years. Now they are left and right. So I don't know. A disclaimer of interest can be done. So I had a situation once where like the stepmom came in and she took over all the property and the 4 kids were just totally like in the dark. She didn't even talk to them anymore, whatever. And then all of a sudden they get this tax lawsuit. So she's been greedy, but she hasn't paid the taxes, right? So they came to me and they were like, you know what, F her, we don't care. She already stole this from us 20 years ago. Our dad's, died, whatever. They disclaimed their interest and I got them out of lawsuit and all of the money was on her. So we can do those. Then we just talked about the ladybird deed, transfer on death deed. So those are ways to avoid probate as well. Other assets can be done with the payable on death, which we have talked about. Using beneficiary forms, so it's like your 401k, your IRA, whatever you call them. The beneficiary form is considered a contract. So even if your will said, oh, I want that life insurance money to go to so-and-so, it wouldn't matter. What matters is what the beneficiary form says. And then your trust, you can use a trust for real property. You can make the trust the beneficiary of your life insurance. Because I have a massive amount of student loans, I have something called an ILIT, which is an irrevocable life insurance trust, and that owns all of my life insurance. So when I pass, nobody can take it to try to pay off my student loans or anything like that.
That's good.
Thank you. Okay, this is my favorite part of the presentation. Here's where I show you why trusts are the best. Are you ready, Martha? You're gonna love this. I think you're really gonna like this.
Ken's ready.
Okay, this is me and my first husband. Not really, but just in fake life, okay? First of all, I would never wear a strapless dress. I want to put that out there, okay? I have the arms for it, but I think it's tacky. So we get married for love. Stupid. And I have these beautiful babies. Now, these are my beautiful babies in real life. So those are actually my children.
Yes.
Okay, note, I covered him with the babies because it was dumb to marry for love. I got smart, Martha, and I said, you know what? I'm going to get married this time for money, like a smart woman does. And I find the oldest, richest dude I can, and I marry him. Smart, right? Okay.
It's love.
It is. It's true love. But look, if I have to deal with a full-grown man-child, I should be comfortable while doing it. Okay? These are his kids. Obviously, they're older than me. Whatever. It's not my fault. I'm young.
So this is a real picture?
No, I just copied all these off the internet except for the one of my real children. And this is not a true story because my dumbass has always married for love. So, this is like in a fantasy world where I could be cutthroat and marry for money. It won't happen. Okay, so my rich old dude never had a trust, didn't have a will. We acquired all this stuff. I made him buy me $1 million home, blah, 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 while we were married, yada, yada, tons and tons of community property. So I inherit my 50% interest. We're talking millions of dollars because I married well this time. And I fall in love with the pool boy. A number of years later, obviously, I'm much older now. So what do? I give all of everything that my rich old man husband that I earned by being married to him, obviously, to the pool boy. What can his kids do about it? What can my kids do about it? Absolutely damn nothing. How could that have been prevented? If rich old dude was smart and contacted a lawyer, he could have created a trust for these two, and everything they made during the marriage could have gone into the trust. And the moment he died, we could have made that trust irrevocable so that he knew the trust was the way he wanted it when he died, and he could make sure his kids were protected. Too bad he was too rich to get a lawyer. All right. So that's my favorite story about why you should have trust. But it's actually like this scenario can happen in regular marriages too, not smart people. So like people who married for love, if one of them dies like kind of young or maybe not even that young, like I read Sandra Day O'Connor's husband, he like started dating someone at the nursing home. And apparently that's pretty common in like Alzheimer's patients. But anyhow, so that your spouse you could be elderly when the one passes and then the other just go start a whole new life. When my dad was dying, my stepmom said, I could have another relationship. Okay. So people do that kind of thing. That person, even, if you were elderly when this occurred, could still will it off to this pool boy or whoever it may be, So I know that's why I recommend trust. This is any family that is at all blended in the state of Texas needs a trust. Okay, so here are forms of like modified probate or probate light, so to speak. There's two. There's monument of title and small estate affidavit. When the monument of title can be used when there's a will, there's no debt. Basically, you just get an order from the court and you record that order, and then the property is split according to the will. A small estate affidavit can be used when someone passes away and their net worth, excluding their homesteads, not the house they're living in, is less than $75,000. Now, I'm sure you can imagine, like most of my elderly clients, when they're passing, this is usually going to apply to them. As you get older, hopefully you're spending down your wealth and not sitting on tons and tons of money. Unless you're that kind of person, I'm not. I'm earning it, I'm spending it. Make that noted. My children should be advised. On both of them, you file into the court, and on both of them, notice to the heirs is required and their consent and agreement is required. So you have to get a waiver form and all these things. That's important, Martha, for families who are like arguing. And trust me, there are families out there where like 7 kids own an equal share of a $30,000 house.
And they're all arguing about it.
And they're arguing. Yes. Come on. When you do that, you might as well just give it to the government. Just hand it over to them. It's theirs. It's so ridiculous.
Multiple times have I witnessed it. I mean, not 30, maybe $50,000 and 8 people. I witnessed it.
Right. Yes. Me too. All the time. It makes me absolutely sick. I tell my kids all the time, I will poltergeist you if you fight over my shit when I die.
That's why I tell all my friends, you wonder why after a certain point I remained single, and then when the children thing got to be no issue, I go, it's not so bad. It's not so bad.
Martha's smart. Okay, so let's see. Okay, now probate. Look, Martha, I made this slide on my own and I'm really proud. I took 3 different pictures and I like made them into one, like the slow and the gavel and probate court. I really am proud of myself on this one. And it's a real accurate depiction of probate. As you mentioned, your 7-year probate debacle.
A stop sign might have been really
more accurate. I hate that.
I'll share later with you my experience.
Okay. So probate's required when there are estate debts, when the heirs are arguing, like we were just talking about, if there's a concern about capacity when the person did their will, or if there's no will and undetermined heirs. You will have to file with probate court. You have to publish notice. You have to have an heirship proceeding. An ad litem is appointed. That's another lawyer you have to pay for on top of the one you have to file into probate court. That ad litem goes out and like finds the heirs of the person. That's really fun when they're dudes. And then eventually an executor is appointed. That person goes through and takes an inventory. They work with the debtors, and then they kind of divide according to the code once all of that work is done. Listen, people like, who should I make? I was talking to a family, they're like, who should be our executor? Martha, you don't have kids, but don't make your kids be executors. I don't care how grown your kids are. You're their parent. They just lost you. Being an executor is a nightmare. Please, people, please.
Every friend that was an executor that I've known, they're tearful and not sleeping at night.
Absolutely. I had this friend, she was an attorney at AT&T. Her best friend was also an attorney at AT&T, but had retired. She had gotten to the C-suites and then eventually retired. Her best friend had an untimely death. Too young, stupid, shouldn't have passed, but nature took her. It is what it is. Well, of course, because it's her best friend who's a lawyer, she made her the executor, right? I am telling you, it was a second full-time job. She was so stressed all the time. You know, she goes in, the will makes a trust. She hands that to the bank. They're like, well, where's the trust? She's like, the will makes a trust. So not only did she have to like be the executor, she has to like teach everybody law, right? Like, oh, it's a nightmare. I would not do this to my children. You know who I will make my executor? My sister, who I'm mad at. That's who's going to be my executor, right? Like, here, you take this annoying job. Actually, I won't have an executor because I have a trust. All right. So the point of this slide is to show you how awful probate can be. All right. So this is the end of this presentation. Again, I had set it for hours because I was going to do the city's presentation, which includes this piece, but then also has a whole thing about title and title issues, which is just, you know, it's not even worth getting into right now, Martha. But the 27th of March, I am going to be doing the presentation with the city. We're going to be experimenting with teams. Allegedly, I should be able to do it in English and it translates to my Spanish speakers at the same time. We will see. So if you're interested in that piece, Martha, you can find me on the 27th for that. In terms of estate planning, I do think you need a trust. Now at Cadillac Law, currently, this is 2021, 2011. My prices will change over time, but currently I'm charging $2,250 for a trust. My estate planning packet does not include the trust, but includes the will, the guardianship, the power of attorneys, designation of remains, like what you want to do with your remains, all those kind of things. So it's 8 documents. For one person, I charge $1,750 for that. I believe that everybody in the whole world needs a trust. I have like 3. I'm obsessed with them. They can own businesses, they can own real estate, they can do whatever. It's like creating a human almost. You know, the Supreme Court gave corporations the freedom of speech, and a trust is basically, it's not like a corporation, it's governed differently, but it's its own entity. So it could have freedom of speech too, as far as I'm concerned. They're awesome. And Martha, nobody's having to be executor. Nobody's going in front of a judge. That's another thing. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm a very private person. So I don't really need a judge to be knowing what I did in my life. You know what I mean? Like the inventory gets filed and then that's like public. Like I don't need people to know what I did. I don't know. That's me. Not everybody is as concerned about privacy as I am, but a trust can definitely help with privacy. Oh, another thing, my trust, you would never know if you go into DCAD and you're trying to find me because you're mad at me because I was a lawyer on the other side of the V or whatever it may be, you can't, because my house is in the name of my trust and I named my trust something that doesn't have my name in it. So they
that
can,
is something that bothers me.
yes, me too. I
They
hate
can
that.
drive right up to my house, They know who I am. And for the people that would poach my title can get to all kinds of documents and everything about me and come across as they're me. And that so bothers me. And that's what, I was trying to discuss that with somebody and they looked at me like I had a third head. You know what I mean? So,
well, you're a single woman, Martha. So you've thought about this the way I have, right? Like I'm a single woman. Who knows? You're an RN, so something could happen with someone and they're like, oh, she did it. Or, I mean, you don't know. People are nuts. People are absolutely crazy.
There's liability issues like you have with a professional license.
And
doesn't this protect you also from for professional liability claims against your property or your estate in a lawsuit?
It would help protect, absolutely. But I will tell you, like, Texas has really good homestead laws. And so, like, even with me, I mean, I have professional liability insurance. If someone got money above my insurance, which is really unlikely, they're not going to be able to get my house or anything. Like, this is Texas. But you are absolutely right. A trust does create a layer of protection. So I have another client who's a doctor and she does a controversial type of medicine, which I fully support. And, she's going to buy a house. Her bank let her just put it straight into her trust. So nobody's ever going to be able to find her name in the record. And that's really important. And the only people under the law who are like protected that way are judges and cops, I think. So if you and I want that kind of protection, we have to go create it ourselves, and a trust will create that for us. The other thing is I put language in that trust that you can still get your homestead exemption, you can still get your 65 plus. So even though technically blah, blah, blah trust owns Martha's house, Martha as the beneficiary can designate it as her homestead as this.
I've just been here. And then also, are we still being recorded on YouTube?
Yeah, we're still live on YouTube, but I will wind that up. Let me just give out my phone and website and such, and then I'll say goodbye to YouTube and you and I can chat privately. Cadillac Law, 972-845-1200. Our website is CADILACLAW.net, CadillacLaw.net. And on YouTube, we are Cadillac Law. Martha, we'll talk privately, but don't forget to go check out that deed fraud video. Okay. And for everyone who's listening, please just hit subscribe. It is really not that big of a deal.